Does it show up?
Recording started.
All right. Right, recording has started. Thank you everyone for your attendance this morning. We'll bring the meeting to order. You know it's recorded and it'll turn up on the council's YouTube page later for reviewing and for the public as well. Mobile phones off please, or silent, and if you need to pop out and do a phone call, that's okay. Just nip out discreetly and come back when you're ready. We'll go to Cedar and apologies please, Stuart.
Okay, thank you, Chair, and morning members. For the Adairn, if you could confirm your presence when I call your name. So, Councillor Mabin.
Yeah, I'm here. Thank you.
I have apologies from Councillors Cogley, Canning and McFadden. Councillor Barton.
Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Sangstar.
Here. Good morning.
Thank you. Councillor Todd. Okay. Apology also from Councillor McGregor. Councillor Lennox.
Morning, I'm here, thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Kyle. Thank you. And Councillor Hogg.
I'm here, thank you.
Yep, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Got a wee echo there somewhere. Right, thank you, Stuart. Welcome everyone at the meeting, and we've got a couple of guests. We've got Louisa Yo, Senior Audit Director. Nice to see you again. And your colleague is with you this morning, Kieran O'Brien, Senior Auditor. Welcome to Governance Scrutiny, Kieran. And I take it you'll both be talking a wee bit when we come to the audit sections of the reports. Thank you. Any declarations of interest? No declarations of interest at this time. Thank you. We'll move to previous minutes from meetings held on the 22nd of January. I need approval as a correct record. Elected members, we're happy to approve.
I'm happy to approve, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor
Happy
Sangster.
to second.
And thank you, Councillor Barton. Correct record. Any matters arising from the previous minutes you want to discuss or comment on? No. Right, thank you. I have a bit here. It says at this stage, remind officers who will be presenting that reports have been issued well in advance at today's meeting. Members have had the opportunity to read the reports beforehand. Therefore, officers should keep their presentations brief and focused on the main points. Thank you. Our first report today, we're at item 3 in the agenda, page 7 to page 61. We have a couple of different people. It's the East Ayrshire Performance Summary Report. Colin Hastings will be leading with the overview and then talking about the revenue stuff. And then we'll move on to the capital part of that report with Simon Bell, the workforce part with Amanda Lowe, and then on to digital with Paul Tolan. I think we'll start with Colin. Thank you, Colin.
Thank you, Chair. Members, this report is the third East Ayrshire Performance Report of the year. The report provides members with performance and monitoring information for Q3, as at the 31st of December 2025, across the areas of revenue, capital, workforce and digital. I will take you through the summary detail of the revenue section before colleagues then brief you on the following sections. The recommendations of Cabinet are noted at paragraph 3, with members of Governance Scrutiny asked to note the contents of the report. Paragraph 6 of the main report indicates that the council-wide overspend position was projected to be 8.739 million, which includes a net overspend of £500,000 in relation to council tax collection and council tax reduction position, as well as a net saving of 1.2 million on budgets managed centrally out with the main service areas. The page on screen details the overall position for all main service areas. On the left-hand side, we can see that at Q3, the overall position is projected as an overspend of 9.439 million. This is an improvement from the position at Q2 of just over 10 million and is in relation to improved positions within education, chief executive services and communities and economy. While most areas were achieving improved financial positions from Q2, the continuing pressure within the social care service remained. On the right-hand side, we can see that almost 295 million of the total projected expenditure has been spent by the 31st of December, with the largest portion of that in relation to staffing costs. At the bottom on the right-hand side, we see a detailed breakdown of the overall net variance of 8.7 million, broken down by expenditure category. We can see that the vast majority of the overspend relates to third-party payments, centrally held savings and transport costs, reflecting particularly the areas of pressure within Health and Social Care Partnership and in relation to education transport. So moving on to some detail within the services, beginning with education. We can see that £111 million has been spent by September, 79% of the overall by December rather, 79% of the overall anticipated spend, with the vast majority in relation to staffing costs. The service was projecting an overspend of 420,000 at Q3, which is an improved position from that noted at Q2 by £565,000. The majority of this improvement relates to an improved position on education staffing costs, as well as utilisation of available employability funding. Pressures continue, however, in relation to ASL transport costs, as well as school absence costs and costs in relation to probationers. Moving on to the remaining services within Chief Executive, a spend at September of £21.2 million is noted, with an overall underspend of £1.3 million anticipated at the year end, a slight increase from Q2. That saving is spread across all service areas, achieved through savings on employee costs, as these service areas progress onwards with service redesigns and additional income recovery. The finance and digital service area is anticipated to underspend by just short of 400,000, with savings in relation to employee costs partly offset by pressures in relation to income recovery and IT licence requirements. Governance service is anticipated to be £595,000 underspent as a result of projected levels of income recovery in relation to building warrants and planning fees. And people and culture is also anticipated to underspend as a result of the anticipated fee income generated from salary sacrifice schemes. Moving on to communities and economy, a slight improved position is recognised. For the services as a collective at Q3, having spent 64 million by December, but projecting an underspend of 348,000. Individually, however, pressure continues to be seen within the Ayrshire Roads Alliance. It is anticipated to overspend this year by just over 1.1 million, primarily as a result of the cost of mainstream school transport costs and roads maintenance contractor costs. Most other services are anticipated to be broadly online or in a minor favourable position, with an underspend of just over £1 million recognised within central management support, where the department has retained savings from management actions previously put in place to enable the overall budget position to be managed on a collective basis. Following on now to the position for health and social care. This remains singularly the largest continuing financial challenge for the Council, as the management of the Health and Social Care Partnership continues to tackle the levels of demand for service provision. As members will be aware, over the last few months since the reporting of the last East Ayrshire performance, there have been a number of Cabinet, Integrated Joint Board and Council meetings to discuss the financial position of the Health and Social Care Partnership and Integrated Joint Board. As a result of reports and recommendations approved at these meetings, including the Revenue Budget 26-27 report presented to Council last week, the financial position of the Health and Social Care Partnership for 25-26 has substantially changed from that presented within this East Ayrshire Performs report, which was presented to and approved by Cabinet members on the 28th of January. The following day at Council on the 29th of January, a report was presented to full Council by the Deputy Chief Executive and Director of Health and Social Care, detailing the financial position as presented here in the East Ayrshire Performs report, a £10.694 million overspend position for 25-26. The report detailed the background to the cause of the overspend position and the pressures that the service faced to support the continued level of service demand. It did, however, detail £1.445 million worth of additional financial recovery measures that could be achieved to assist with the financial position this year, leaving a residual gap of £9.25 million. As detailed in paragraph 20 of the main covering report, this East Ayrshire Performs report also noted that the Director of Finance and Digital was concluding the annual review of balances, which would consider whether this was able to identify any non-recurring funds which could support the partnership this year. The outcome of that review was presented to Cabinet on the 11th of February, which identified 6.537 million to be retained to support the health and social care financial gap in the form of an emergency financial support reserve to be released subject to the final outcome position of the IJB this year. Following this report, the Revenue Budget 26-27 was presented to Council on Thursday of last week. This report identified that the latest financial projections for the Health and Social Care Partnership had improved slightly by an amount of 591,000, and that in-year savings of just over £2 million were now anticipated, rather than the 1.445 million previously indicated, which on achievement would leave an approximate £2.1 million adverse position for the 25-26 year. As part of this report, members were advised of the intention to support this shortfall by a proposed draw from the General Fund uncommitted balance. However, in order to maintain the Council's reserves and balances strategy of a minimum of 2% of annual budgeted expenditure, there would be a requirement to replenish this in 26-27 with a higher level of proposed council tax increase above the initial 5%. The report initially proposed an 8% total increase, but on the day following the slightly improved anticipated outcome position regarding the Health and Social Care Partnership, a 6.9% increase was approved as sufficient. On the basis that the position as advised by the Director of Health and Social Care is achieved at the financial year end, there would now therefore be a balanced budget position anticipated at the end of this financial year. If we move on to the housing revenue account, where we can see that it is anticipated to underspend by £897,000 at Q2, the graphic on the left of the page shows a balanced position overall, recognising that any underspend in relation to the HRA must remain within its use for supporting tenants in future years. As reported in the previous quarter, the service is taking the opportunity to increase the level of planned spend on CFCR plan maintenance. This has been possible due to the favourable position arising from windfall savings on employee costs from the reduction on employers' superannuation rate to 6.5% this year, which the HRA is able to retain. This can be seen in the top variance in the graphic on the bottom right side of the page. Next is the Leisure Trust page, which continues to anticipate an online position overall at the year end, as was the case at Q2. The graphic on the left-hand side of the page details the £8.65 million management fee that the Council provides the Leisure Trust with for the management of services, whilst on the right we can see at the top a breakdown of the service areas that the management fee is spent on, and on the bottom right details of some variances within each of these areas, both areas of pressure and the countering areas of saving which support these in the current year. If I move on to central services, these are functional budget areas that are not assigned to individual service areas as they relate more to corporate functioning of the Council as a whole. There are two areas of note that I would address here. The first is the continuing position in relation to housing and council tax benefit. A £900,000 overspend continues to be anticipated in relation to council tax reduction support, recognising that the level of entitlement for support to members of our community is in excess of the funding we receive, and that the Council must find funding elsewhere to support this. There has also been a review of some centrally held budgets ahead of the year end, and budget capacity of £1.2 million has been identified, primarily in relation to actual corporate payroll requirements. Moving to the last page, I would just note the summary table at the end of the revenue section, which provides a cumulative position on all of the main service areas and the council funding position which supports them. It recognises the reported Q3 council overspend position of £8.739 million. It should be acknowledged, however, that the movement that has occurred in relation to the financial position of the Health and Social Care Partnership in the intervening period since reporting to Cabinet on achievement and implementation would result in a revised overall favourable position in year for the Council of £1.955 million underspend. So that represents the revenue position at Q3 for the Council, and at that point I'll stop there and happy to take any questions.
Right, thank you very much, Colin. I note Councillor Jim Todd is online now. He's welcome to the meeting, Jim. And we'll do some questions and comments on the first part of the East Ayrshire Performance Report. And as usual, members, if you can let us know which page, which paragraph you're referring to, so we can all follow along the comments and questions you put. Any questions or comments? Councillor Sangster.
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Chair. Just on page 12, paragraphs 27 and 28 regarding the overspend at New Cumnock Early Childhood Centre. I'm always surprised to see that quite a lot of the works that we carry out as a council always seem to result in an overspend, and I do wonder why. I do wonder why, in particular this instance, why these additional works could not have been foreseen. I would like to, have a wee bit more clarity around that. And also on page 19, regarding the ASN transport, I see there's been a reduction in the overspend, which I'm pleased to see. And I want to acknowledge the hard work of the transport review team that have had a very, very difficult job along that. I'm sure it's not easy to have to tell families that they're not entitled to transport. I do wonder though how that's going to look over the next maybe year or 2 years. Are we going to continue to see a reduction in the overspend? And finally, I'm pretty sure I've asked this question before, so apologies if I have. Just regarding probationer teachers and the fact that we're a bit overspent on that. The probationers are they not cheaper? Do they not cost less? So I'm just wondering if we can have a wee bit more clarity around that. Thanks, Colin. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sangster. I think one of your questions is referring to the capital part of the report, so we'll take that later when that part of the report's coming out. You're happy to answer that anyway. Right, who's going first then? Right, Simon, thank you.
Thanks, through you, Chair. Yeah, regarding the overspend at New Cumnock Early Childhood Centre, obviously in the report it kind of notes the details around about the additional works that were required, but if I could take that one offline, I'll find out if these were unforeseen works or additional works that were requested, and I can provide you with some more detail on that.
Thank you.
Thanks, through you, Chair. Thanks, Councillor Sangster. In relation to the ASN transport, it is pleasing to see that there has been an impact on the level of pressure that there is in the ASN transport through the work, the significant work that the Transport Review Group has undertaken with what were some difficult decisions that had to be made in relation to that. In relation to going forward, in the budget paper that went last week, there was agreement by council members to put in additional budget support in there of about £750,000, which will add additional support going forward to and relieve some of that pressure in there. And second to that, going forward over the next year, there's further work that continues to be done in relation to the approach to providing transport. Obviously, the work that was kind of done this year still focused mainly on the provision of taxi service to provide that as the first stage in reviewing and applying the policy. But as we go forward, consideration of when work will be done by the education service and transport colleagues and wider colleagues as to alternative transport arrangements that could be put in place to allow that to make further headway into that overspend that's there on that. In relation to your second question, you're absolutely right. Probationers do get paid slightly less as they're coming in than in relation to qualified teachers. However, this is more the pressure there's more to do with the funding side of things than the actual expenditure. What we get is we'll only get a proportion of funding for every probationer that we get in, and the amount or the proportion of funding that we get will depend on how much we are willing to pay in order to obtain that probationer. So if it's mainstream subjects, then I might be sort of kind of surmising here, but if it's mainstream subjects, we kind of have to compete with other authorities in order to perhaps get those probationers. So we may accept less funding in order to get that probationer, but perhaps with more specialist subjects we may take them on board or accept or anticipate a higher level of funding. So that can make a difference. So it's not necessarily about what they're getting paid, it's about how much money the Scottish Government are willing to give us to support that.
Thank you, Colin. Linda, has Colin kind of answered it for you?
once a teacher, always a teacher, marking Mr Hastings' work. Tremendous answers, Colin. Thank you very much. So on both counts, particularly the probationer one in respect of how that's funded in the bid system and what authorities are willing to pay in order to attract probationers into the system. Just to take the question, Councillor Sangster, on ASN transport, another stage. So Colin's absolutely right in terms of the additional settlement offered through budget last week. But in addition to that, clearly the TRP will continue to function as before, and clearly you've seen realised some of the savings in that particular space. But I would just draw members' attention to the ASL update paper that was also passed in Chamber through Cabinet last week, which is more focused on providing young people, where appropriate and in accordance with their additional support needs, a space in their own locality. So there's both aspects here, both in terms into reduction in dependence upon taxi transport as being the most expensive modus, but actually in moving us towards a more locality-based approach that actually cuts the journey in the first place. So just on both counts, I would be very reassured that that will be an overspend that we will continue to see reduced, both by the agreement of members to provide additional funding, but also in the aspiration to ensure that where appropriate, our young people can be educated in their own localities. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Colin and Linda. Councillor Sangster, you happy with those answers? Are you coming back with?
Yeah, no, I'm happy with those answers, and thanks for offering the clarity about the probationer teachers. That's actually really good to hear that. Just what you did mention about taxis and looking at alternatives. What are we talking about? Yeah, are we talking about perhaps minibuses, that kind of thing? You know, and rather than a taxi, and are we going to be looking very carefully at whether those children are going to be able to travel with multiple children in a bus rather than a taxi? Thanks.
Through you, Chair. I mean, Linda will probably be able to give a bit more detail than I can in relation to that, but certainly the anticipation that those modes of transport will be looked at, but always giving consideration to the requirements of the children in relation to the support that's needed there. So that's something that's just been initiating the looks at what opportunities are there to look at, as far as I'm aware.
Through you, Chair. Absolutely agree with Colin's statement there, and it will be always about the correct mode of transport for the young person in accordance for their individual additional support needs. In Eddie or absence of Richard at Chief Exec and Deputy Chief Exec level, what we have begun to discuss is, are there ways that we can look at more municipal type transport that actually would not only benefit this particular system around about getting young people to school, but would also have a benefit for the residents and citizens of East Ayrshire in a wider sense, given that we've seen the diminishing of some of the public transport routes, etc. So there is discussions going on, and clearly in due course that will be something that we'll be bringing back to the members. I believe Deputy Chief Richard Grieveson is having a look at that as we speak, in terms of using some local assets and looking at how we can use such resources in a better way. Both in that regard for ASN transport, but also in terms of, you know, life and employability of the citizens of the council in the wider sense.
Thank you, Colin and Linda, for those answers. We're going online as Councillor June Kyle.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Colin, for the just this morning. Page 19 as well, as Jane was talking about. Early learning years, I see there's a delay in filling vacancies. Is this a decision taken to delay the filling, or is it a problem getting the right teachers?
Thank you, Councillor Kyle.
There's certainly no decision not to recruit Councillor Kyle, so often it's just in terms of, you know, the actual recruitment process, etc. Taking place. Clearly you will know though, Councillor Kyle, that previously we were in a significant overspend around about early years, going back, I think we'd be talking about the last financial year to this one. So we really did have to tighten the purse strings in that particular regard and make sure that we fulfilled what we'd committed to in terms of members, in terms of resolving an overspend that we had in that area. So there may still be legacy issues around about that, but certainly there's no determination not to fill those posts and working really hard with our colleagues and people in culture to do so. But again, there is, you know, clearly significant demand elsewhere in terms of early years too. So it's about, again, people willing to come and potentially, relocate to work in East Ayrshire, and also the fact that we've got that outward demographic that Eddie refers to. So in summation, clearly we do have some issues still legacy-wise around about early years and making sure the service doesn't find itself back in overspend. But at the same time, there's certainly no instruction in place around about vacancy freeze, and that, if an ECC requires a post via ELCA or an ELCP in terms of practitioners or teachers, that would be one that would be taken forward, again, through the people and culture processes of the vacancy scrutiny processes that we've got in place, Councillor Kyle. I hope that answers the question.
That's fine, thanks, Linda.
Thank you, Councillor Kyle, for the question, and Linda for the answer. Any more questions on this part, which was the revenue now? Is that a legacy hand, Councillor Kyle, or was you wanting back in? Sorry. Okay, thank you, Councillor Kyle. In that case, we'll move on to the next part of the report, is the capital part. Simon?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Good morning, members. Just starting with the capital programme summary page, which is at page 35 of the report. That presents the period 9 position as at 31st of December 2025 and provides the financial details around about current year budget, projected spend, and current year spend across the strategic work streams. Since this report's been prepared, members will obviously be aware that the annual capital investment programme report was presented to Cabinet and Council last week, and it was agreed that there would be some reprofiling of the programme across various budget streams. It also provided updated details on progress across the projects, and if I could just give you a summary of some projects. So at the moment there's over £50 million of construction contracts that are currently on site. That includes the Palace Theatre and Grand Hall as part of the Cultural Kilmarnock project. Works are progressing on site, however, as the building's being opened up, a number of unforeseen issues are being identified, including the presence of unrecorded asbestos and additional areas of rot. The first phase of infrastructure works at Ayrshire Engineering Park and Ayrshire Manufacturing Investment Corridor, which is part of the Ayrshire Growth Deal. They commenced on site in October last year and are making good progress with completion anticipated by September. Design development for the remaining phases is ongoing and a tender is due to be issued to the market in April. At Kilmorse Primary School, works to replace the existing dining hall and kitchen started in November, and they are due to complete this autumn, followed by the demolition of the existing dining block on site. Projects at detailed design stage include the extension and refurbishment of Stuart Academy, where tenders were recently issued to the market. We anticipate an award of contract around about April-May time, subject to final costs, and works would then commence in the summer thereafter. At Willowbank, a contract was awarded to construct a new modular classroom block, and groundworks are underway on site, and it's expected that the classroom should be available for use by May. Projects at the earlier stages of development include Doon Valley Community Campus, where revised proposals for refurbishment and extension of the existing school are now being developed to a more detailed design stage. A planning application is being prepared and a series of consultation events is being organised. With the Cairn Road Council House build project, a master plan has now been agreed and tender preparations ongoing, and we expect that works could commence on site later this year. So thanks, Chair. That's just a brief summary of some projects, but happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Simon. We'll go to any questions or comments. Elected members. Councillor Sangster.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just on page 41, around the Galleon Centre, we've obviously still got 13 million sitting there. I think we need a wee bit of transparency because we're getting a lot of questions from the public around this, and it's one of the things that gets commented on quite a lot in social media. There was a lot of stuff on the media around the Galleon Centre just recently that I saw this question asked several times. What's happened to this 13 million, and what are we actually going to do with it around the Galleon Centre? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Chair, through you. Yeah, as has been reported and discussed at Cabinet previously, there is a feasibility exercise being undertaken at the moment as part of the wider Kilmarnock regeneration master planning. That is almost complete. It's been led by colleagues in East Ayrshire Leisure Trust, and I know that a report on that will be brought forward to members at a future Cabinet. So I don't have any detail of just what that feasibility report looks like at the moment, I'm afraid.
No, thank you. I think it's just important the public know that it's not just sitting there doing nothing, and that there is action being taken. So thank you for clarifying that, and I look forward to hearing more about it.
Thank you, Councillor Sangster. Councillor Kyle online.
Good morning again. It's just a few questions. If you can get a date for the demolition of Greenmill Primary School, also maybe a date when the car park's going to finish in Gleesnock Road, Cumnock. I noticed they're going to be talking about putting a miners' memorial in that car park. I would prefer it obviously in the town hall rather than hidden away in a car park. The final thing is well done for Cairn Road because it looks absolutely beautiful.
Thank you, Councillor Kyle. Simon.
Yeah, thanks, Chair, and through you again. With Greenmill demolition, we're hoping to get on site with that in the summer. It is predicated around about the ecological surveys we need to do around about the bird nesting season and any surveys in relation to bats. But summer would be our target to get started with it. The Gleesnock Street car park, if I could take that one offline, I'll check with colleagues in ARA who are leading in that project, and I can come back with some details around about that. So thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Simon. Any other questions or comments? No. I was going to ask one about ARA. I'm conscious that we don't have someone from Ayrshire Roads Alliance in this morning, but I'll try. I don't know if one of our officers can help. It was in page 48 about the slip roads, which has been postponed. I'd really like some clarity on that. Local residents are already upset with the number of roadworks down there, and it's been compounded by Scottish Power also. They're going to come in and do roadworks on the same streets, it looks like. So I don't know if anyone's got clarity on when that'll happen. Surfacing and traffic signal works postponed.
I don't have any detail on that, but I can take that back to Jane Corey and get a response to you for Chair.
Okay, thank you. I had another one I'm trying to find, sorry. Appreciate your patience. It's actually back to you, Colin. It was on East Ayrshire Leisure Trust, page 31, which isn't capital. Sorry, I'm jumping backwards. Investing in our people and embracing our values. There was a subsequent increase in staff numbers. So I don't know if anyone's here from the Leisure Trust this morning. It was just to ask it, is that coming from Vibrant Communities transferring over the subsequent increase in staff numbers? Or have they recruited more over and above that number? I noticed they're doing a recruitment event at the Dick Institute today or yesterday.
Thanks, Chair. I'm not aware of the specifics in that, but that is the area in which they monitor their corporate, their system, their sort of central staffing. So there will be changes in relation to that will have an impact on the level of support that's required to be provided there. So, but again, I can pick up on that with Annika and get a fuller response back to you.
Right, thank you. Any other questions or comments? No, we'll move on to the next part of the report. Is we're still at East Ayrshire Performance. We're on to the workforce part, and it's not Amanda Lowe. Apologies, it's Donna Nielsen who's presenting that part. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. So the workforce element starts at page 51 of your papers, and the first page relates to staffing. So that's the headcount and full-time equivalent for the most recent quarter compared to the previous quarter, and shows it has increased by 10 people. However, when you look back at the quarter last year, the headcount for the council overall has decreased by 180 people, or 2.86%. Within these quarterly figures, it should be noted that the number of permanent employees across the council has remained the same, and the number of temporary employees has increased by 10. During the period October to December 2025, full-time equivalent has decreased by 26.07 or 0.5% since the last quarter, and within these figures, permanent full-time equivalent has increased in the last quarter by 16.98, and temporary full-time equivalent has increased by 9.09. Since this time last year, the full-time equivalent for the council has decreased overall by 165.71 or 3.05%. On the right-hand side of this page, this shows employees under 30 years of age, and overall the number of young people under 30 working with the council at the 31st of December was 1,000, with 106 of these young people being in apprenticeships, or 10.6%. The largest proportion of apprentices sit within communities and economy, 85, chief executive 12, and wellbeing 9. Overall, our young workforce equates to 15.6% of the total headcount. Moving on to page 2, the left-hand side shows trainees, with the number of jobs and training posts increasing by 6 in the quarter, from 83 in quarter 2 to 89 in quarter 3, which is a 6.74% increase. Looking back at the same period last year, the number of jobs and trainees has decreased overall in the year, with the largest reduction being business administration framework, with a reduction of 13. On the right-hand side of page 2, this details positive destinations and shows that 6 modern apprentices and 1 graduate intern have gained posts within the council within that quarter. And for the same quarter the previous year, there were also 7 in total moving to positive destinations, although at that time it was 5 MEs and 2 graduate interns. Moving on to recruitment. The left-hand side shows vacancies, with the total number of posts advertised this quarter in comparison to last quarter. Overall, the figures highlight a decrease of 80 or 30.88%, with the advertising of both frontline and non-frontline posts decreasing. On the right-hand side of page 3, this table shows the number of new starts, with a total of 115 new employees starting in post compared to 189 in the previous quarter. Just moving on to page 4, this gives details of the number of leavers, with 122 employees leaving the council during the 3-month period. This was a decrease of 60 from the previous quarter. The main reason for people leaving was resignations. That was 57. Moving on to absence. This first page of absence details the working days lost for quarters 1 to 3 cumulatively. It should be noted here that the cumulative figure reported of 2764 is wrong for 25-26, and it should be 3297, therefore showing a slight increase on the working days lost for the same period last year. The next page gives a comparison of the length of absences from this year compared to last year, and continues to show that short-term absence remains high, although the number of people off between 2 to 7 days has reduced slightly across all services. And then finally, the reasons for absence shows that the top 3 remain the same when compared with the previous year, with the 4th and 5th reason swapping position. So there's a reduction in the number of work days lost for stress personal, musculoskeletal and stomach abdominal, with a small increase in days lost for stress work related and a significant increase for operations recovery. The 2 bottom graphs show details of all stress absences, with the total days lost for stress absence being 17,175 days compared to 18,832 days in the previous year, which shows a decrease of 1,657 days lost. That's me. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna. I'd like to members, any questions or comments? Councillor Sangster.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just on page 57, you were talking about reasons for absence. So a couple of questions. Obviously, we're getting a lot of people off due to personal stress, which is concerning, obviously. What kind of things have we got in place to support people who have who are going through personal stress? Are we offering them counselling? Are we offering them a good amount of support in order to get them back into work? And also, this is just my curiosity. The reasons for absence: you've got colds, flu, and upper respiratory tract infection, and then you've got respiratory. Is there a difference? I'm just curious, because to me, you know, an upper respiratory tract infection would be the same as something that's respiratory. So what's the kind of difference, if you know? It's just out of my curiosity. Thanks.
Thank you. So in terms of personal stress and wellbeing supports, there's a wide range of wellbeing supports available. And if someone does become absent with stress, we've got an early intervention process in place. So they're contacted within 7 days to have a discussion about anything particular that we can support with, but they're also issued with a wellbeing toolkit, which has a whole range of signposting and different things that they can consider, which includes counselling. It includes a range of our wellbeing training that we do, which can include mindfulness. I'm trying to think of them all, but there are quite a number available. So that happens. We also have counselling, and we have CBT, which is available for people who have got specific needs. In relation to your question around the respiratory and upper tract differences, I'm really not sure what those differences are. However, I will say that as part of the review of the absence policy, we are looking at the reasons for absence and reducing the categories to make them more kind of generic. So respiratory will cover quite a range of these things in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna. Is that okay, Councillor Sangster?
Yeah, I just wanted to nip back in. You know, it's great to hear about the wellbeing toolkit, CBT, and all that. Is there a success rate? What do you have figures for, or even a breakdown of, like, so if somebody's contact within that 7 days, are they coming back to their work quicker than you would have imagined, or are we still having people who just are not coping and just have to take a long-term absence?
Yep. So as part of the new team that was created last year, they are monitoring whether people are coming back quicker. So I obviously don't have those figures to hand at the moment, but I can certainly get them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Donna, and thank you, Councillor Sangster, for the questions. We'll go online. We'll get Councillor Hogg online with a question or comment. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. Again, on the same page we're on at the moment. First of all, we must be doing something right in the NHS if our operations are going up, so our waiting lists must be coming down a wee bit there. And in relation overall, it is testament to some hard work that we're doing within council to get the amount of absences down. Can I just ask, we were previously talking about doing check-in calls. Do we still do them?
Thank you, Councillor Hogg. I don't know if absences are coming down.
The stress absences have came down.
All right, sorry.
In terms of the check-in calls, is we obviously with stress are doing calls within the first 7 days to see, that's part of our early intervention programme. Managers should be checking in on a regular basis with their employees if they are off sick for any reason. So they would usually agree that between themselves, depending on what the issue is that the employee is off with. But we'd usually recommend a kind of weekly check-in. So hope that answers the question.
Yes, thank
Thank
you.
you.
And yes, I should have mentioned it was the stress absence levels that were decreasing. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Hogg and Donna, for the reply. It was just, I noticed on page 55, I mean, the number's not right. You've corrected us with a new number. It's not 2764. What was the new number again? Sorry. 3297. I would dare no speak for every elected member, but I think we're all concerned about a high level of absence. And I know you're working very hard to try and get that down, because obviously there's a cost attached in our budget to absence. Thank you, Donna. Any other questions, elected members? Councillor Barton.
I don't know if I'm reading this wrong, but the stress for work related has increased. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. It's gone up.
Is there any particular reason for that?
So I don't know. Is my is my short answer for that. But I can certainly try and find out if there's any kind of commonality in relation to that. We can look at the particular areas. We've got that sort of detail and can certainly provide that.
Thank you, Councillor. But I don't know, just a general thing. If people are off in a team, then the people that are left behind in that team have extra workload to try and cope with, so that would add to their stress. So you could end up with a snowball thing happening.
Yeah, that does happen. Yeah, if people are off and then other people have got increased workload, then that can cause additional stress. But you know, in general, you know, managers are aware of that and they try to support their staff as much as possible when these things happen. But I'll certainly try and find out a wee bit more information.
Thank you. If there's no more questions, comments on that part, the last part of the East Ayrshire Performs summary report, we go to digital, and it's Paul Tolan.
Good morning, members, and through you, Chair, I'll provide some additional information this morning based on the narrative that's contained within the report. So, as ever, the digital update is split into 3 tabs. The digital summary page should provide an indication of progress against the projects highlighted and how that's reflected in the 3-year savings target. The next 2 tabs provide information on current projects and those recently completed. There is a discrepancy in relation to accessibility on the digital summary page, which I can only apologise for. However, I'm pleased to assure members that progress has been made in that space, and I'm happy to update you this morning. So, turning to current projects, and starting with public sector website and mobile application accessibility monitoring. All public sector websites created before September 2018 are now subject to compliance with the public sector body's accessibility regulations. And as at November 2025, our public-facing accessibility score was 99%. In addition, we are sitting in 11th place across UK councils and 1st place in Scottish councils. This information is provided by Silktide, which is their independent web governance and quality management platform. Accessibility will be an ongoing piece of work which now forms part of our routine website publishing procedures, and the teams are gradually working to remove out-of-date content and inaccessible PDF documents. As of November 2025, inaccessible PDF documents were no longer being published on our website, and over 600 inaccessible PDFs have been removed from our website so far. An internal awareness campaign was launched in October 2025 to encourage and support staff in making online content accessible and therefore compliant with the legislation. Moving on to care at home and technology-enabled care, the total mobile solution that went live in May of last year continues to work well, with a series of refinements applied to the database to improve operational service delivery. The tech team continues to work alongside key frontline services with projects for the next few months researching the use of technology in the care at home environment that could generate savings, and the service will report back to members in due course. In terms of Microsoft 365, colleagues in ICT and information governance have developed oversight arrangements for advanced apps that make use of data to ensure there are adequate governance and security processes in place. The digital trainers who were appointed last year are now fully embedded in developing training material to maximise the use of the 365 products and are liaising with our digital ambassadors to provide focus on service needs. In terms of our corporate telephony strategy, preparatory work has now been completed at the new customer contact centre in the town, and ICT recently completed the implementation of a new call recording system across the contact centre platform. F&PM Property Asset Management System. This project will see the current Technology Force property management system replaced with a new platform supplied by Civica. It was due to go live in March this year, but supplier resourcing has led to a delay in its implementation. Further work continues in terms of income management and upfront payments. So we continue to develop a model for upfront payments, with the most recent additions the development of an online payment solution for car parking and skip hire permits. Digital Efficiencies Planning project, the Improvement Service have engaged with our technical working group to support and develop a technical specification for the procurement of a new GIS system, with the initial project comprising of stakeholder engagement across all services. And finally, turning to projects that are now complete, the incident management system. Having collaborated with colleagues from across services, ICT have completed development of an in-house incident management system that will provide reporting, collaboration, oversight and tracking of major incidents that require a cross-council response. The in-house development of PRISM, a new platform for reporting and monitoring across the council, is also complete and will go live as of April 1st. And finally, Chair, our AI policy was approved by Council on the 29th of January. OD will soon be launching the mandatory AI Learning Pro course for members and staff, and IT now start undertaking some projects and looking to see what we can actually do with AI in that space. Chair, I'm happy to stop there and take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Elected members, we're at page 59, 60 and 61 on your reports. Have we any questions or comments for our digital team? No, none. You want another go, Councillor Sangster?
Yeah, I feel like it's this Councillor Sangster show this morning. Yeah, regarding just a general comment about digital, the tech and care at home. I think it's really important for us to remember tech's great and it is working well. But I think it's really important that we acknowledge that nothing can replace hands-on carers. Tech has its place, but I think we're in danger of blurring the lines and have people lose out in support that need it. So I think we really need to be careful that this technology is getting used in the right scenarios, because, I mean, this is real life human beings we're talking about after all. And that's just a general comment. I do have a question. Do we have a timescale for the decision regarding what O365 apps we will be releasing into whom? And further rollout of apps, are they likely to happen? And I'm assuming is it going to be a staggered kind of thing? Thanks.
Yep, thanks, Chair. Yeah, so the process we have for app deployment is that we give them to the digital ambassadors to basically stress test them, first of all. The more advanced apps that make use of council data, there was a recent piece of work undertaken by one of our support partners who highlighted that we should have better governance in place before we release those apps, and that's the work that's currently ongoing between ourselves and information governance. So that'll be the apps that will use things like, so it'll be like Power BI, for example, which could potentially use, and also Forms. Any app at all that could potentially use data we need to make sure we've got those governance in. But there's no plan not to roll out any apps as such. At the moment, we've got the new trainers are looking at the OneDrive and migrating staff over to OneDrive. And further on down the line with things like SharePoint and what have you as well. But yeah, we'll continue to roll out the apps as they come along. As I say, but they will go to the DAs first of all, just for stress testing and coming back with any issues before we roll them out further.
Thank you, Paul. I suppose the one app that everyone is using now more and more and getting used to is Copilot. A lot of people now using Copilot for emails back and forward to constituents or letters going out. And I don't know if some of the officers have tried using Copilot with some of the reports. I don't know if you can comment on that.
Yep. So there was a meeting this morning actually held with Microsoft, but obviously I'm here, so I wasn't at that meeting. There is an issue with Copilot insofar as that there's a free version and there's a version which actually runs on a per meter price. Now, we need to be careful that when we do launch Copilot, we don't launch the per meter price, because what we've discovered from discussing with other local authorities is that they get a bill at the end of the financial year, which could be running to tens of thousands of pounds. So the meeting this morning with Microsoft was to actually come up with a strategy of how we can use and launch Copilot without it costing the council a significant amount of money.
All right, thank you. And the other thing I'm thinking about is we're going to be rolling out CCTV, mobile CCTV. I don't know if your team would be involved in that, and that would link in. They're particularly looking at monitoring what has become fly tipping hotspots. Will your team be involved linking that into the monitoring site?
So that would normally fall under the community safety manager. Obviously, and that post is vacant at this point in time because he left in December. My understanding is that will be used it'll be deployable cameras that will be used. It will not be fixed cameras. So my understanding will be deployables, and they have that technology within the RMC already. So that currently exists, but we don't normally get involved in it, no.
All right, thank you very much. Any other questions or comments? Okay, in that case, we'll end the East Ayrshire Performance, a summary report. If I can take you all back to page 7, the recommendations are there in paragraph 3. There are 9 recommendations. I'm not going to read them all out because you are very good elected members. You have all read your reports. And just noting for this committee, all 9 recommendations. Are you happy with that, elected members? Thank you. We'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the planning report to Governance and Scrutiny Committee on the 25-26 audit, introduced by Colin Hastings and Louisa Yule to present the main report. That's what my notes tell me.
Thanks, Chair. This is just to introduce the report from the Council's External Auditors Audit Scotland on their planning report for the audit for the year ending 31st of March 2026. And at that point, I'll pass over to Louisa Yule, Audit Director.
Hey, good morning and thank you, Chair. Our annual audit plan outlines a summary of our planned work for the audit of the 25-26 financial year for both East Ayrshire Council and the charitable trusts which the Council administer. On page 68 at paragraph 9, we've referred to responsibilities relating to fraud in the financial statements. We've made inquiries with officers and internal audit around fraud and the arrangements and controls in place to mitigate fraud. In presenting our plan, we invite members of the committee to bring to our attention any instances of actual, suspected or alleged fraud either today or throughout the course of the audit. On page 69 at Exhibit 1, we set out our planning materiality levels. Materiality acts as a benchmark to assess the overall impact of any audit adjustments in the financial statements and indicates areas where additional assurances may be required. We've set materiality at 2% based on the prior year gross expenditure from the audited accounts, and this recognises the minimal audit adjustments required in previous years as part of the audit, the good standard of underlying working papers provided by officers to support the audit of the accounts, and the experience and the capabilities of the finance team. On page 71 and 72 in Exhibit 2, we highlight 2 significant risks of material misstatement to the financial statements that we've identified through our audit planning work. The left-hand column in the table outlines identified risk and the right-hand column outlines our planned audit work to gain the assurances we require. The risk of management override of controls, which is the first risk, will feature in all annual audit plans and is not unique to the East Ayrshire Council. We gain our assurances through review of journals, estimates, accruals and prepayments and cut-off testing within the accounts, as these are areas which are subject to judgment or estimation in their calculations. The second risk is around the estimation and the valuation of property, plant and equipment. This is an area with a high level of complexity and there's a lot of judgments and estimations underpinning those valuations. We have ongoing discussions with finance officers around this year's audit approach and will continue these throughout the course of the year. On page 73 at paragraph 20, we outline the bodies that make up the East Ayrshire Council group within the accounts, and within Exhibit 3 we outline the audit procedures we've planned for each of these component organisations. At paragraphs 22 to 29, we outline the audit approach for the two Section 106 charities that the Council administer. And we are aware that one of these trust funds has wound up during the year, but as part of our audit we'll confirm the arrangements for this. And within Exhibit 3 we outline our materiality levels for the charitable trust. We've not identified any risks from our planning work with the exception of management override of controls. For our wider scope and base value work, we've not identified any audit risks from our planning work, but we do recognise the financial challenges and the financial environment in which the Council operate, and we have identified this as an area of audit focus. In terms of best value work, we've undertaken a thematic review on asset management this year as part of the Accounts Commission approach to specific annual reviews as part of this audit appointment, and this work will be reported in the next agenda item. Paragraphs 39 and 40 outline the outcome of the local area network group meeting for East Ayrshire Council. So alongside the external audit team, representatives from the Care Inspectorate, Education Scotland and Scottish Housing Regulator meet to share intelligence and discuss any planned scrutiny work for the year. These discussions have not resulted in any additional scrutiny work being undertaken or identified for East Ayrshire Council. And finally, I would like to draw your attention to page 80, Exhibit 5, which sets out the timing of the audit and our intention to complete the audit and sign the audit opinion by the end of September 2026.
Thank you, Louisa. Elected members, any questions or comments on your reports? It's page 62 to 84. Any questions or comments? No. Well, I have one, just a wee one. I noticed East Ayrshire Leisure Trust use a different auditor for some reason. I'm not sure why that is. It's on page 73. So the Audit Scotland do the other audits, but for some reason East Ayrshire Leisure Trust are audited by assets. I don't know what assets are. Sorry, Colin.
Through you, Chair, it's just to recognise that East Ayrshire Leisure Trust are obviously a separate organisation from the Council, so they have their own auditors. Assets are the auditors that are appointed by East Ayrshire Leisure Trust to undertake the annual audit of their accounts. Where it's relevant to ourselves is that because of the relationship that we have with East Ayrshire Leisure Trust, they form part of our group accounts that have to be produced, which will form part of the audit remit that Audit Scotland will look at. So we will and require to receive their accounts and the audit report, etc., that are produced by assets to allow that to be considered by Audit Scotland as part of our wider group, but they are not directly audited by Audit Scotland.
Thank you, Colin. Elected members, any questions or comments? Lisa, you're getting off light with this one. Elected members, I'll go back to page 62. The recommendations in this report is paragraph 2, and it's just to note the contents of the report. I'll close that item 4 on the agenda. But item 5, we're straight back to Louisa again, and it's Audit Scotland Best Value Thematic Work, Asset Management for the Council. Louisa.
Thank you, Chair. So as part of our annual audit work this year, we have undertaken a best value thematic review. These are undertaken annually as directed by the Accounts Commission. This is the 4th year of this approach. The thematic review this year is on the subject of asset management and involves considering how the council manage its assets to ensure high quality services whilst also responding to the challenges around financial sustainability and climate change. Alongside the thematic review programme, at least once over the 5-year appointment, a Controller of Audit report will be presented to the Accounts Commission, and this will look at the Council's performance in meeting its best value duties. East Ayrshire Council has not been included in this year's programme, so it will fall into the final year of the programme, which will be between October 2026 and August 2027. I don't plan to go through the detail of the report, but I would draw your attention to the pages 87 and 88 of your pack, which outline the key messages. We've concluded that the Council demonstrate effective approach to asset management. There's clear strategic alignment between the asset management framework, service level asset management plans and the capital investment programme. The asset management framework supports the delivery of the Council's strategic objectives. The Council has sufficiently considered the affordability of its capital programme and asset management plans, and this is evidenced through your affordability cap and the planned reductions in the capital programme to ensure its affordability. The Council's reporting and monitoring arrangements enable good scrutiny and oversight of progress. The Council is in the top 2 quartiles of Council performance for 3 of the 4 asset management local government benchmark framework indicators. And we did note that there's mixed trend performance around internal asset management indicators, but this does help drive that continuous improvement in this area. The Council works collaboratively with partners, and we also recognise the strong track record and clear approach for supporting community asset transfer requests, although we did note that there could be increased transparency around how applications are scored. As you'll note in the final point, we've not identified any improvement actions from this report, which is a really positive result for the Council. And finally, I would just like to record my thanks to all the officers who supported the work in meeting with us, providing information and evidence and responding to queries.
Thank you, Louisa. Kieran, I don't know if you want to come in. Welcome to Governance and Scrutiny. I realise it's your first meeting here. I don't know if you want to come in and add anything. No, quite happy to sit and watch and listen. These are 2 very good reports, and I mean, in general, where Audit Scotland is happy with East Ayrshire Council as far as our systems and our accounting and our reporting goes, and we keep getting these very good reports from Audit Scotland. So, Colin, I'm sure you're happy with the same results. So we keep getting more of these reports. Thank you.
Absolutely, Chair. No, we work closely with Audit Scotland and Louisa and her team. So as we go throughout the process, it is quite a collaborative working relationship. So anything where we have changes or anything where we need to discuss, we are quite happy to bring that up with Audit Scotland to kind of come to a sort of almost an agreed decision as to any changes. So that obviously allows for the reports to come out the end, and hopefully that will continue going forward for the next year.
Thank you, Colin, and thank you, elected members. And that additional thematic report is this value thematic work. That's just, the report's just for noting. The recommendations follow on from the previous report. Thank you, elected members. We closes item 5 on the agenda. We're on to item 6, which is the annual return on the Scottish Social Housing Charter annual performance report to tenants. And for this report, we're going to Helen Merriman, Housing Services Manager. Thank you, Helen.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, members and colleagues. The purpose of the report is to provide an update to Governance and Scrutiny Committee on the annual return on the Scottish Social Housing Charter submitted to the Scottish Housing Regulator in May 2025 and the annual performance report to tenants published in October 2025. Recommendations are noted at paragraph 2 of the report. The background and the outcomes and themes within the Charter are stated at paragraphs 3 and 4. Paragraphs 5 to 8 discuss the responsibility of Scottish social landlords to meet the Charter outcomes and standards, and that to monitor landlords' achievement of the outcomes and standards, the regulator requires landlords to complete an annual return in the Charter by May each year and carry out a large-scale tenant satisfaction survey at least every 3 years. Paragraphs 9 to 11 set out the timeline for submission of the Council's annual return in the Charter and the consultation and collaboration with representatives from the East Ayrshire Federation of Tenants and Residents and tenant representatives prior to its submission to the Scottish Housing Regulator. In September 2025, the regulator published landlord reports for all social landlords in Scotland, which provide information on 15 key indicators benchmarked against the Scottish average performance. Paragraphs 12 through to 22 describe the key service areas and satisfaction indicators which were identified by tenants as being the information they wanted included in the annual performance report to tenants. And the East Ayrshire Federation of Tenants and Residents and Tenants and Residents groups across the authority agreed the satisfaction indicators which would provide them with the required information so as to assess the effectiveness of East Ayrshire Council as a landlord. Table 2 sets out the performance across satisfaction indicators 1, 2, 5, 7 and 13, whereby all report better performance than the Scottish Local Authority average. The information contained at paragraph 21 is based on internal survey work, and indicator 12, which is the percentage of tenants who have had repairs or maintenance carried out in the last 12 months satisfied with the repairs and maintenance service, has increased to 99.3% and is consistently higher than the Scottish Local Authority average. Paragraphs 23 and 24 discuss performance in the housing quality maintenance indicators. In indicator 9, the average length of time taken to complete non-emergency repairs has slightly increased, but the Council performs better than the Scottish Local Authority average across the same period. The indicators relating to neighbourhood and community, access to housing and support, and getting good value from rents and service charges are set out in paragraphs 25 through to 35. You will note the Council's performance in indicator 15 of 95.8% is above the Scottish Local Authority average of 89.9% in meeting antisocial behaviour case management targets when compared with the previous year. Performance at indicator 17, which is the percentage of lettable houses that became vacant in the last year, has decreased to 8.9%. However, is significantly lower than the 2019-20 figure of 10.8%. Our Housing Asset Management Framework process continues to assess and annually review a wide variety of measures to rationalise our housing stock, helping to improve this indicator, and additional improvement activities that are underway include tenant scrutiny of the void business unit. A number of factors impacting on tenants' ability to sustain their tenancies, and we continue to implement a number of initiatives such as the Connecting Housing and Tenants visit, or chat, to support tenants in their home and seek to reduce the number of tenancy terminations. And other supports include advice and assistance to mitigate the cost of living crisis and the challenges faced by those tenants who are most in need. Within indicator 22, there has been an increase in the number of court actions initiated, which resulted in eviction. Of the 118 court actions raised, 24, of which 21 were for rent arrears and 3 for antisocial behaviour, resulted in eviction. A wide variety of supports are available to assist tenants who incur rent arrears to maximise their income and reduce any financial insecurity, and robust processes are in place to respond to serious and persistent cases of antisocial behaviour. Performance in relation to rent and service charges outlined at paragraphs 30 through to 35, with indicators 18, 26 and 27 have all improved and are favourable when compared to the Scottish Local Authority average. Our strategy linked to the Housing Asset Management Framework and the integration of repairs and allocations functions have shown significant improvements in letting long-term void properties, with numerous positive impacts felt by communities when these properties are relet. And in 2024-25, 93.6% of void properties were relet in under 16 weeks. Of the 17 indicators included in the annual performance report to tenants, 14 have remained the same or improved in performance. And the Council continues to work in partnership with the East Ayrshire Federation of Tenants and Residents and interested tenants through consultation forums to increase participation and engagement with housing services. Paragraphs 36 to 38 discuss the annual performance report to tenants, which was issued in October 2025 and meets the Scottish Housing Regulator's requirements. The preparation and submission of the annual return in the Charter and annual performance report to tenants support the Scottish Government's Housing to 2040 vision and the guiding principles of the East Ayrshire Community Plan and associated delivery plans. Both the annual return in the Charter and the annual performance report to tenants meet the requirements of the Scottish Housing Regulator's framework and the requirements as set out in the Housing Scotland Act 2010. Implications are set out in paragraphs 39 to 48. And to conclude, the annual return in the Charter, annual performance report to tenants, meet the requirements of the Scottish Housing Regulator. The performance information contained in the report shows a positive trend, with the majority of indicators showing improvement, or that the Council is operating at a similar level to previous years. The preparation for this year's annual assurance statement and annual return in the Charter submission is underway, and we will liaise with the Housing Regulator and continue to report and monitor key quarterly performance information. Thank you, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Helen. Go to elected members. Any questions or comments on the housing report? Councillor Barton.
Thanks. It's a really good report. Well done. I just have a question out of curiosity for myself on page 118, indicator 30 about relating properties. Why does it take 50 days on average?
Thank you. Through you, Chair. There are a variety of reasons why properties become empty, and quite often there could be extensive works that are required, and essentially the number of days that would result in perhaps plaster work, repairs that are identified, or also where it's decided that housing improvement works should be carried out at the same time as the property being void, rather than waiting until a new tenant is in situ to then carry out extensive works. Thank you.
Thank you, Helen. Thank you, Councillor Barton, for the question. Councillor Sangster.
Thank you, Chair. Helen, I've got a couple of questions. See, with regards to emergency repairs, which is in your kind of report on page 124. What constitutes an emergency repair? Because obviously a tenant might think something is an emergency, but the team might go, that's not an emergency. So is it a subjective thing from the person who receives the phone call? Do they decide, or are there guidelines with regards to what an emergency repair is? I'll let you answer that question, then I'll come in with another one. Thanks.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. Yes, there are categories for repairs. So absolutely, when somebody experiences a repair in their home, it will often be an emergency to them, but an emergency repair would obviously be something such as loss of heating or power within their property.
Yeah, thank you. And my next question is round about the kind of number of evictions due to antisocial behaviour. So we've only had 3 evictions due to antisocial behaviour. So I suppose my question is, considering the number of complaints that elected members get, I'm sure other elected members will agree. This is something that we get a lot of complaints about antisocial behaviour. You know, people are having a nightmare with their neighbour, for example. Are we being proactive enough? Are we restricted with legislation around this? I know the antisocial behaviour team work really hard. They do, and I actually probably know the answer to this question, but I think it's important for anybody that's watching this meeting publicly that they understand the process, and it's a lengthy process, and what that process is in order to obtain an eviction due to antisocial behaviour. Thanks.
Thank you. And through you, Chair, we have very robust processes when dealing with reports of antisocial behaviour. The process is based on prevention and early intervention. So upon receipt of a complaint, whether it is minor noise nuisance or up to serious or extreme cases of antisocial behaviour, the investigator will make early contact with the complainer or complainers and seek to ascertain the facts surrounding the complaint and give appropriate advice and assistance, and that may include involving wider partners such as Police Scotland. The process itself, there are a number of stages within the process in dealing with a complaint, which include the issue of formal warnings and visits to the complainer, as well as the subject of the complaint and taking them through the process of letting them know if the behaviour continues, what the impacts can be. Now, when it comes to the evictions in this report for antisocial behaviour, they were all with regards to drug convictions, which then resulted in the eviction of the tenant after the criminal case was heard at court. There are a number of remedies for antisocial behaviour, and alongside our series of warnings within the procedure, we can apply to the court for an antisocial behaviour order. And the number has increased over recent years, and there are ramifications, I would say, for if a sheriff grants an ASBO against a tenant, then we would look to convert the tenancy to a short secure tenancy, which would then come with support from our housing support team. So we quite often find that upon being granted an antisocial behaviour order, then generally the behaviour will cease and it wouldn't then result in eviction. So I hope that answers your question.
No, very much, and I think that gives a bit of clarity for anybody in the public that's watching the meeting, that they understand that process, that you can't just go in and evict somebody because, you know, they're being noisy next door to you, or even dealing drugs or whatever. You know, we have various ranges of antisocial behaviour, as you've said, from a slight noise nuisance to really extreme. So, no, so thank you for clarifying that.
Thank you, Councillor Sangster. Just back to you, Helen, on the likes of rent arrears. Can you give us an idea on like timescales and the number of different steps? I take it you're sending warning letters about rent arrears, and are we talking about 4 months or 6 months, or is it over a year when you finally decide, right, these rent arrears aren't being paid, do we need to move towards eviction?
Thank you, Chair. The Council's rent recovery procedure and processes are standardised to ensure that all tenants in arrears are treated consistently and fairly and with sensitivity according to their needs, and the monitoring and recovery of rent arrears has a focus of early intervention and prevention, and our neighbourhood coaches follow a process with regards to recovering rent arrears and enabling tenants to enter into repayment plans to clear their arrears. We issue standard trauma-informed letters at different stages of the arrears process, and we seek to make formula-based, realistic and affordable repayment plans. We also look to ensure that universal credit is claimed where appropriate, and that advice is given to tenants around wider financial management. In the serious and persistent cases where rent arrears are either not being addressed or reducing and remain at a high level, and where the tenant is not engaging with the support that's available to them, then the case is prepared and passed to our legal services team for a court action to be raised at either Kilmarnock or Ayrshire Sheriff Court. Now, the process can take a number of months, as you say, from submitting the summons at court and setting the court hearing date to then obtaining an outcome by the sheriff. And there are a number of key stages in between, from receiving the court date and informing the tenant of that pending court date to continuing advice and assistance with regards to clearing or reducing the debt. So there is ongoing engagement from our officers at the point where the case is passed to legal services. And the decision ultimately, when it calls at court, is the sheriff's decision to make. And quite often on first calling, the sheriff would not seek to grant decree for eviction and would often give the tenant or tenants the opportunity to enter into a satisfactory repayment plan. So quite often it can take a number of months. If a case is continued for perhaps 12 weeks, then our neighbourhood coaches would be in contact with the tenant again just to seek engagement and establish a repayment plan, with always the aim being to reduce and then clear the debt. But absolutely, Chair, it can take a number of months, and ultimately we're guided by the decision of the sheriff.
Thank you, Helen. And I suppose that leads to page 118. I mean, the amount of rent that we collect. It's on that table there. I was quite amazed that we collect 100.9% of indicator 26. We collect 100.9% of the total rent that's due. I take it the 0.9%, what that says, bringing some of the arrears back, it takes it over the 100. Is that the idea?
Thank you, Chair. It was actually as a result of a week 53 within the financial year, which meant that with benefit payments coming into the council, that it did exceed 100%. Thank you.
That's quite amazing. How are you going to beat that next year? Okay. Just some other comments. If there's no one else, anyone online? No. Page 115, paragraph 21, table 3, and we're satisfied with repairs. Again, brilliant performance. We've only got 99.3% of our tenants are satisfied with the repairs. So good luck with that. I hope you can manage to get that to 100. I don't know how, but 99.3 is very good. Page 116, table 4. What did I highlight there? I put something else in. 116, table 4. Indicator 9, the average length of time to complete non-emergency repairs. Again, very good. Only 7.9 days to get non-emergency repairs. And we're below the Scottish average, which is 10 days. And indicator 8, only 1.4 hours for emergency repairs. So some of our senior citizens, maybe their central heating doesn't work. We're there 1.4 hours or less getting that problem sorted. It's a very good performance. And again, well below the Scottish average. Page 116, paragraph 25 is antisocial behaviour. And again, I would like you to pass back our thanks to the antisocial behaviour team. They do brilliant work, led by Craig Ferguson. And please pass back our thanks on behalf of all the elected members for the good work that they're doing. 95.8% antisocial behaviour cases resolved within the timescale. What do they mean within the timescale? Is that, I take it that's flexible depending on what kind of ASB case it is?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Absolutely, there are timescales depending on the category of repair. So you have category 3, nuisance, and then extreme, or serious, and then extreme. So we would always seek to resolve category 3 complaints in minimum of or maximum of 30 days. So the reason it wouldn't be 100% is perhaps where complaints are ongoing, or there could be multiple complainants experiencing different issues at different times. But certainly it is it's a figure that the antisocial behaviour team are very keen to achieve completion within timescale.
Thank you, Helen, and I'm sure you'll take your thanks back to that team. They're doing great work. I'd like to members, if there's no other comments or questions, we're going back to page 111, paragraph 2. There's 4 recommendations there, noting the contents of this report, and it's a very good report. We're doing well. We've got all our numbers with better than Scottish average. Thank you, Helen, for presenting the report. And the last item on the agenda, or item 7 on the agenda, we're awarding of contracts, and it's period 8th of November 25 to 13th of February 26. And we'll go to Julie for this one.
Yes, thanks, Chair, and good morning, members. So this is the regular report that comes to the Governance and Scrutiny Committee, and as the Chair says, this is still a period 8th of November to the 13th of February. The outcome of the tendering process in respect to the contracts across various departments and sections is shown at Appendix 1, and the committee is asked to note the contracts awarded during this period in question. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Julie. That's page 138 to page 146 on your reports. Elected members, have we any questions or comments on the awarding of contracts? No one. You getting off light, Julie?
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, elected members, and it's page 138. We're just noting the contents of this report as well, if there's no questions or comments. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, elected members, and all the officers presenting reports. Thank you for your attendance, and we'll close the meeting there. Thank you. See you at the next one.